This
Anyway,
conference will now be recorded.
Sorry, just wanted to get that going before we
okay.
got too deep into this. But just before we get started, can I make two housekeeping announcements? You all should have gotten the email about the VDOT environmental certification modules. Starting in March of next year, if you're submitting an RFP with any NEPA services, you'll need someone that's certified. So highly recommend getting on that sooner rather than later. I think they're already all available. If not, at least the first one is available. Also, the Office of Intermodal Planning and Investment, the Growth and Accessibility TA program, GAP TA, applications are due November 1st. It's not a super long application, 30, 40 minutes maybe. And also, we will not have a meeting next month because it's Veterans Day. So enjoy a day off.
Okay.
But, this is Becky Golden. I'll let you really introduce yourself because I don't have too many details on you, but
Okay.
let me just get to sharing this presentation, however I might do that.
And I think you need to put it into a slide. There you go.
Yep.
Great. Okay.
I will minimize this for now. Hello to Carol and JP, and hope you guys can hear us okay. And yeah.
Yes, we can hear you just fine.
Oh,
Thank
great.
you.
Great. Okay.
I'm just gonna shut the lights so that I
Okay.
can see a little better in here.
And I'll go ahead and stand and maybe I'll kind of stand off to the side a little bit like this. Can you folks see me on the, that a remote?
Should be able to. It's a pretty wide angle.
Great. Okay. All right, I'm very excited to be here. Becky Golden from University of Virginia, the Center for Transportation Studies, and I'm the safety circuit rider for Virginia. It's a grant funded by VDOT and the Virginia Transportation Research Council out of HSIP funds. So what I've done today is going to be a presentation about the methods used for the 2 case studies that you've received. And also I've done something extra since the last case study. I've looked at the VDOT potential for safety improvement project map. We're going to go over the methodology of what that methodology is. And then we have a brand new tool that's in the beta testing phase from the city of New Orleans through the Transportation Research Board called a Safer Street Priority Program. So we'll just jump right in. Turn it on maybe. All right, it's on. Wonder if here we go. Oh. Tell you what, I'll stand here and we'll try low tech. Oh. Did you do that?
That was me.
Okay, great. I'll let y'all just say next slide.
Okay.
How about that? That sounds good. Let me turn this off. Okay, great. All right, the method for the VDOT potential for safety improvement, you can find this map by in your Google search engine typing VDOT PSI map. It's an ArcGIS map. You can zoom in and out to your area, and at the bottom, the information for the different VDOT districts are on that. They have prioritized and ranked, I believe, the top 200 of the VDOT district intersections and segments. They have used all crash severities, and that's important for us to note because the high-ranking project or high-ranking intersections, for example, the number 2 intersection is down in Danville. They're a busy signalized intersection. So your signalized intersections are going to have a lot of property damage only or O crashes. And what's cool on that site, you can go over and get the Google link to the site location. So you can find the intersections easily. And what VDOT has done, this is like magic. I don't have the capacity to do this myself. And so I had to use a little more low tech or crude method myself. But VDOT's system, computer, has the ability it has all of the major and minor traffic volumes at all of those intersections. And they have run all of the intersections in the VDOT district through a ranking process with their safety performance functions. So that's the magic part of it that I'm not able to do myself. And I have a little cruder method that I used for your first case study. So keep that in mind. The August case study, by comparison, in the counties, for the 4 counties, we used all crash severities, but then road departure crash types. And what I did, instead of utilizing the very convenient RD left or RD right tool in the crash tool, I went to first harmful event of entire crash of all your, well, let's take Appomattox County as the example. I'd use Appomattox County as the jurisdiction, go to all crash severities, KABCO, and under first harmful event, I would turn off first harmful events like motor vehicle and transport, or fell or jumped from vehicle. What I was trying to find were first harmful events that would have something to do with the road, that we might find road departure opportunities for signs or curve warning signs and the like. And another one I would turn off would be parked car. You will get a road departure right if somebody ran into a parked car. So it turned off things like that. Then here was the kind of a crude part of my analysis that I did. What I did is in Excel, when I downloaded those all those road departure crashes for Appomattox County, I would go into the route number, and when a crash occurs northbound on State Route 627, it would have NB or northbound on the end of it. So we easily with Excel strip the eastbound, westbound, northbound, southbound. So what you do then is you do a pivot table to find your high frequency, your high road departure routes. And in Appomattox County, no surprise, US 460 would be the high frequency crash route. So kind of by eye, we'd had Appomattox County, Amherst County, Bedford County, Campbell County. You take that pivot table and kind of take the top bunch. There'd kind of be a break point. And then you all saw a chart. You'll see these charts later here as you see the results of it. And what you do then, and then I'd go get the traffic for those routes. And also, if you keep in mind, State Route 626 as an example in Bedford County might be 3 or 4 roads. So again, the crudity or the sort of the rough part of my system is that, route, 626 might be 3 different roads. They'll probably have 3 different traffic volumes and crashes of a total along that route. Hey, you got to start somewhere. So I'm kind of trying to explain some of the weaknesses of the system. But what's great, when I got that information together, I did the same thing VDOT did with their safety performance function for road segments and ranked them among each other. So you find your high crash volume routes, and then you rank them among themselves, if you will. Next slide. Great. So we had, now let's talk about the city and the towns, what I did in August. All right, well, the towns, I said, all right, let's take all crash severities for the towns. Lynchburg had a lot of crashes. So in their case, I did a download of their crash information with those KAB. And most of you are probably familiar, the CABCO scale. K is fatality, A is serious injury, B is visible injury, C is non-visible injury, O is property damage only. So a lot of the charts you'll see focus on KA or serious and so forth. Becky's method, KAB are my go-tos when I try to strip off those fender benders. I call the C and the O kind of fender benders, and probably more human related than road related. We want to find crashes in locations where people are hurt. In the towns, I'm going to go ahead and look at all of them. And also a node, all I had to really work with, again, part of the kind of crude part of my method, I don't have knowledge of VDOT's computer system. In the crash tool, you can use a filter called a node. And you'll see in the Lynchburg crash locations, a node encompasses several intersections. So it's not just one node per intersection. So what I did is I for Lynchburg City and for the towns, would use the filter of intersection. And then there's a filter called intersection offset, which I could squeeze in. So basically I chose intersection, yes, and then node offset 500 feet. So the crashes I downloaded for the towns and the city were by node and a ring around that of 500 feet. So you'll kind of see a cluster of intersections when we look at that. Then I did the same thing I did for the routes in the counties. I'd go and get the minor and major average daily traffic at that node location and ranked them among themselves, among each other. And then found a really interesting thing. While I was trying to find the traffic volume for one of the nodes in Amherst County, it was along US 29 at Buffalo Creek. And I was like, well, I didn't have an intersection there, so I needed a major and a minor ADT. So I saw these crashes right at the creek, and I said, what's happening here? And we saw deer hits, and I have a great closeout on this presentation. That was quite a find there. All right, so then we sent you in September. The next step I wanted to do was, how about the pedestrian and bicycles? Where are they in the Central Virginia Planning District Commission? And I didn't really have a way to rank them or tell you where the hot spots were. So I just, in the September case study, is like, here you are. Here are all your bike and ped crashes. And next slide. Next comes, through serendipity and timing, this new model, Safer Streets Priority Finder. Again, we're in the beta testing phase of that. And what this model does, takes your pedestrian and bike crash data. It takes the functional classification and risk for ped and bike, and then will give you and then uses a sliding scale, sliding window approach for in your cities and in your 4 counties. Now I'll back up a little bit, that the Safer Streets Priority Finder uses the boundaries, if you will, of counties and cities, and does not, the towns are embedded in the county data as far as our outputs in this case. So, but it also has, so there are 3 crashes you can model with this priority finder: ped and bike, and that uses risk factors and crash data to find locations even in the absence of historical crash data. That's so cool. Where should we focus in Lynchburg? Where should we focus in the counties, for example, even if there aren't ped and bike crashes there? It's like, that's magic again. Now the other category, and I got kind of clever and chose that. We'll get to that in a minute. It varied in the other category for Lynchburg City. I used all crashes, not bike or ped. Where in Lynchburg would there be other non-bike or ped segments or locations we need to worry about? We looked at nodes before. I'm feeling pretty good about that. But are there other segments in the city that rise in this other category? In the other category, in the Safer Streets Priority Finder, they don't use risk factors. It is a KAB sliding window scale So the other is for you to use to your creative whim, so to speak. So in Lynchburg, my other field was all crashes, all crash severities. If you recall, in the earlier case study, we used KAB to find the serious nodes, okay? So this is another look at Lynchburg. And then the counties, my other, of course, my road departures. All right, next slide. Oops. Now, I've kind of talked about this a little bit. The risk output is, they also will give you, and the great thing about this, Safer Streets Priority Finder, it pumps out a report that looks like I spent a month and a half on it. And what it has in that report is the cost. For example, in the Lynchburg pedestrian, bike, and other report, it will have a cost associated with you doing nothing. It's the cost associated with those crashes that the model found in the city times the loss, the value to society of each of those KABCO. So it's kind of cool because it shows decision makers, here's your cost of doing nothing. If you go and then do one of these projects and reduce those crashes or compute crash reduction, you can say, here's what that cost is by doing nothing. Here's the cost by implementing our project. Next slide, please. All right, so we've talked about this a little bit before. We get the high injury network for bicyclists and pedestrians, and then takes into account the areas with a disproportionate share of fatal and serious injury crashes and develops the sliding window analysis based on historical crash data. Next slide. And this is kind of an explanation of the sliding windows. It literally gives a score for fatal injury, serious injury, and non-capacitating injury. And then maybe the next slide will get us there where we're at. It gives you that sliding window. And here's the important thing that I'm really tickled about. They used KAB, which, dumb luck, that was the same thing I did, and also a very modest score for K and A of 3. When I was doing our equivalent property damage only scoring, our graduate research assistant, Wesley Michelson, used log 10 on those values to society. A fatality, for example, one fatality might be valued at $15 million. O, property damage only, $11,000 for a fender bender. So using log 10 shrinks those variations in value to come up with, and our score for K was a 4 when Wesley used log 10. So really kind of pleased to see that. So what's cool is you've got a weighting, you've got a scoring. When I do these road departure, other ones, they are weighted, okay? Next slide, please. Okay, great. So here's what we're gonna see. Just as a reminder, the VDOT potential for safety improvement, they are ranking all the intersections and segments in the whole VDOT district, all right? And using all crash severities through the CABCO scale. And like magic, they rank them without any interim step. Next slide, please. And here's what it looks like. We've kind of honed in on the Lynchburg district. Next slide, please. And then, as you all know, Bedford County is over in Salem district. So when we see a high ranking intersection in the city of Lynchburg, you're number 17, for example, in the whole VDOT district. That's really bad or good, however you want to see it. Next slide. All depends on your point of view, doesn't it? Now, in your August case study, we talked about this in the counties. For the 4 counties, we used all crash severity, road departure, crash type. Our first step was to find those high frequency routes, road departure by route, and then we ranked them, and then we mapped the trends for the top 4. That's why the presentation, the case studies were so voluminous. Next study, next slide. This shows you that first step. This is for Bedford County when I did the raw frequency ranking. And we went down a little further than 747. And that's sort of where my system starts. Next slide, please. And then here, we'll spend some time on this slide. This is where we ranked them among each other. The earlier slide had US 460 at some crazy number, I don't know, 400 and so many crashes. And when you see the Safer Street Priority Finder, it does not rank by traffic volume. So for example, my guess is that for Bedford County, we might see Lynchburg-Salem Turnpike B, they also pump out a top 10 of your crashes. So you'll see the Safer Streets Priority Finder for other, it doesn't have the advantage of traffic volume, nor the ranking that we've done here. So here's exactly what we'd want to see. Hey, good news, Lynchburg-Salem Turnpike, working great. What that means, you had a lot of road departure crashes, but the traffic volumes are so high, when you rank them against each other, it's doing great. It's really, and we all know it's a great road. Here are our opportunities. Hooper Road, Java Mill Road, Stony Fork Road, really low traffic volume roads. And when you see that many road departures, they rank high. So just kind of keep Dickerson Mill and Hardy of course going into Denton there. So what we did then was a trend slide for the top 4. And that just shows you the output there. Next slide, please. Now I think what I did is I put all the 4 counties in here in a row. Again, Wards Road, I just can't help get a little closer to my slides there. US 460, they're working great, because we're normalizing with traffic volume among each other. What the purple line is the predicted crashes of this grouping. So when you see a scatter plot of the VDOT safety performance function, it's like this sort of curve that goes up with a lot of dots. So what you're seeing here is just a minuscule snapshot of these roads being ranked among each other. Just shows you kind of the, and what it does too is it finds the low volume roads again, and what you would do or what you would consider would be driving these roads together as a team or with a partner and finding perhaps areas, chevron signs and so forth. I learned when I taught the Systemic Safety Project Selection Tool class last week, the importance of not just doing a systematic installation of chevron signs, for example. Someone might say, well, let's go to Lynch Mill Road and every curve we're going to put chevron signs, or every curve of a certain radius we're going to put chevron signs. What that does is it inoculates the driver. They then expect that unless there's a chevron sign, I can just drive as fast as I want. So what you want to find as a team would be a combination of risk factors that could be used to identify where you'd want to put those signs. The example that Walt Catlett uses in the class I thought was great, that you might have a policy that says, we'll install chevron signs where one of 2 of these conditions exist. And the condition might be a curve radius of 500 feet or less, no shoulders, and crash history. So if you have low shoulders, no shoulders, and a crash history, chevron signs would go in. If you have just the 500 curve radius, no, you don't have 2 of those risk factors. So that way there's a way that you can make sure the motorist is respectful and understands there's something coming ahead that I really need to pay attention to. Next slide, please. This is our Amherst County. Notice the number 3 over there is Lowesville Road. And again, Southern Amherst Highway, US 29, Lexington Turnpike, thumbs up, all working great, even though they had a high number of crashes. Next slide, please. In Appomattox, we just didn't quite have as many roads, period, when I did that sort. And here were the high ranking ones. Richmond Highway, thumbs up, working great, even though it comes up as a high frequency number. Next slide, please. All right, on to the August case study. On to the, going next slide, please. We explained about nodes. I've circled this node here of Lynchburg, the second highest, and they are just numbers. So next slide. This is a location at Old Forest Road, Hill Street, and Mormons Road. And you'll notice as far as number of KAB crashes, it only had 10. It's kind of ranked down, but when I ranked it among the other nodes, it was second highest. Kind of shows you. This slide also shows you the concept of a node, that it's a cluster, several intersections in a cluster, but this one certainly caught my eye. And it also shows up in the VDOT PSI map. Next slide, please. And this was Alta Vista nodes. We're now going through the towns for the nodes. Next slide. And in your case studies that you've received, now this kind of hopefully makes sense. When you look back at those PDFs of the case studies, like, what is this woman trying to show me? What's she telling me? So hopefully this will make more sense. And you'll see that we took the top 4 of the high scoring nodes and did the trends for that node location in that case study. Now this is really cool. When I did the town of Amherst, we have a location down there that's third from the lowest, the roundabout. I just wanted to give a hat off to the town of Amherst. When you saw the total crashes at that node, it was a lot. There are a lot of fender bender, property damage only, but it's working great. So just a thumbs up that the roundabout is working great. And this is a way to validate your geometry too. Validate, if people say that roundabout, by golly, I get confused and I say, well, hey, look, it's really working very well. Because when you see the total crashes, you're like, oh my goodness. So what's great in this ranking is just by traffic volume. It's not by scoring EPDO or anything. But when I saw that initial crash number, my eye kind of went, oh, goodness gracious, what's happening here? You rank it with traffic volume and hey, thumbs up. Now this is our, the very bottom one there with high deer strikes at Buffalo River and US 29. Just wanted to show you, it's not a high scoring, high ranking location, but we have a really cool opportunity to maybe get VDOT and VTRC to take a look at that for the deer fencing countermeasure. Next slide, please. And then the town of Appomattox, again ranked, and this helps you know what you received and how to take a look at those locations yourself. Next slide, please. And same with Bedford town. And next slide, please. And Brook Neal town. Next slide. All right, let's get into the Safer Street Priority Finder. We've talked about what we're gonna see here. Next slide. All right, I did an ArcGIS map, and that's how you get the information into the Safer Streets Priority Finder. You need a shape file. So I did the, and you need only 6 attributes as far as what Safer Streets is looking for. And it's collision type, crash year, and severity, latitude, longitude, and a document number. So here's just a map of the Lynchburg, and in this case, I put in the KAB, no, Lynchburg all severity. That's why it says all. It's just a map of the ped and bike locations. Next slide, please. And you'll get a full report. Here's what you get. These are the top 10 pedestrian sliding window score. This is what Safer Streets is really trying to, this is the value added of this tool. And I'm doing now an October case study so that you will see the zoom in of each one of those points. When it says Langhorne Road, crash score number 9, for example, I'll then have a snipping tool shot and zoom in to each of those top 10 locations so you'll know where they are. Next slide, please. Then you get the bicycle sliding window score. And that way Kelly can know where to put her signs and really, this is a game changer for a tool to tell you where bike and ped improvements can be made. I mean, this is good stuff, and the timing just couldn't be better. I'll do the same case study for you to know where these locations are. And you'll see, for example, 12th Street with a crash score of 6, and the rest have a crash score of 3. Here's the good news too. Everything's okay. This is really good. The report card is an A+. This just helps you as planners and transportation professionals to know and defend where to make improvements in the future. Next slide, please. Now here's other from Lynchburg. And I used all crash severities, and these are not normalized by traffic volume. And I will show you where they are. But I can't really, there's no great wow moment here other than to show you you're going to get this. Next slide, please. Bedford County, map of that. Next slide. Here's your pedestrian crashes. Obviously, the 4 counties are going to be light, but by golly, you've got a crash score of 3, which means there were 3 pedestrian crashes in that sliding window. So interesting, and what you do with this will be your own to figure out yourself. Next one. Bicycle, fewer there. Next slide. And then other. This is where I get kind of excited. Notice here, and these are by frequency. They're not normalized by volume. Obviously, East Lynchburg, Salem Turnpike, crash score of 24. But look down toward the bottom. The same ones we found with my somewhat humble method. Java Mill Road, Dickerson Mill Road, Goodview. I'm like, oh my gosh, I found this too. So next slide. Amherst, and we can just go ahead and click right on through them pretty quickly now, because you'll get the full report. Here's your pedestrian, bicycle, other, and hold on here. Lowesville Road is one that's kind of cross-correlated there between the 2 systems. Next slide. Appomattox, next slide. And pedestrian, we'll show you where those are. And other for Appomattox. We have a cross-correlation, I believe, Oakville and maybe Red House. I'm now looking at that more closely now. And the scores are lower in Appomattox. Why? Because the topography is east of the Piedmont. Just don't have as many road departure crashes in Appomattox because we don't have as much hilly terrain. Next slide. Campbell County. Next slide. And you'll see the pedestrian locations, not only up where you'd expect them, but throughout the county there. These would be the best kept secret. We would not have known about these locations had we not had this tool. This is great. Everybody kind of knows, oh, yep, we're up around campus there. But look how throughout the county you found pretty high pedestrian crash sliding windows. This is great. Next slide, please. Not many bicycle crashes in Campbell County. Next slide. And we have a correlation here with the UVA system. I believe Lawyers was on there. Can't remember where my cross correlation is. I'm working on that now. Next slide. All right, next steps. What the heck are we going to do with this information? Well, it was Kelly's idea, and I think Ada's idea too, that what you would do is take a look at low-cost opportunities, low-cost countermeasures on your county roads and your towns and so forth. One of the concerns that Appomattox had was several roads flood frequently. And so this is a clip of a water gauge height sign on the VDOT system on Rapidan Road near the crossroads of Rapidan. I don't know if it's a formal town or not, but the idea is that if your planning district commission comes up with a bundle of countermeasure signs, for example, and you ride not only the top 4 rows, but you ride all your rows. And right now, the smart scale system is set up for a MPO or a planning district subdivision. You're a political subdivision in the Code of Virginia. You can apply for smart scale funding. And VDOT can be listed as the project administrator of the project. You click that button. So you have money for VDOT oversight, come up with a cost estimate for signs, for example, and then I can help compute the crash reduction value. So we could come up with a bundle of projects. The best low cost project would be signs. Pavement marking is kind of complicated. When do you put it down? But signs are real easy. In the city and towns, for example, also coming up, the HSIP portal for a Highway Safety Improvement Program portal is now currently closed, and VDOT has been installing HSIP projects around the Commonwealth. In 2024, that portal is going to open up to localities. So right now, VDOT is working with us to come up with HSIP projects for cities and towns. We're looking at signalized intersections and looking at HSIP funding can pay for safety improvements at a signal location. Let's say you want to upgrade and replace the traffic signal to go from an old 4-bolt foundation to an 8-bolt, maybe get things out of the way that are being smacked into. And the signal reconstruction project itself is not eligible for HSIP. It is eligible for smart scale, but HSIP funds can pay for the high-vis backplates, the lane direction signs, either over on the mast arm or approaching the signal. It can pay for the advanced street warning signs, 5th Street next signal. It can pay for traffic timing and synchronization of your signal system. So what we're trying to promote is the idea that not only do we want to look at the rural areas with road departure signs, for example, or these kind of water gauge signs that would be part of a bundle, but also the cities and towns, and take a look at all the signals in the city of Lynchburg, all the signals in the towns, and make them consistent with these safety bundles that can be put on old signals, they can put on existing signals, or a part of a signal reconstruction project. So that's Kelly's vision, to have a big old smart scale project, maybe it has some HSIP money in it, to leverage these kind of improvements at no cost to you. Next slide. And that was just another close-up of that. Next slide. And this is cool. The VDOT PSI map, going back to that. Number 118 in the district, next slide, is the approach to Buffalo River. All right, next slide. And you don't get much information off of the PSI map. That's the information you get, other than it's ranked 18. Next slide. Now here we are back that it's made our top list frequency-wise there. That's the high deer strike. Next slide. And then this is what really caught my eye. I said, oh my gosh, look at these deer strikes there. The other two are rear-end collisions. I bet they were rear-ended somebody stopping for a deer. Maybe that deer made it. But it's a, next slide, please. It's a beautiful location for this countermeasure, pretty hot off the press. Next slide. And they've deployed it at on I-64 on your case study, I believe the August. There's a PDF of a great YouTube video that shows the effectiveness and how this was developed. Next slide. And it even considers how to get the deer out of the trap of the interstate and the best ways that the deer respond with these jump outs. And then next slide, and I think we're at the end. Okay, great. So with that one, the one with the deer strikes, I had an idea to contact VDOT or maybe do a little more study on I-29 with deer strikes to maybe find other locations. I'll wrap this up here. Next step, I'm working on an October case study for you that will show you all those SSPF locations and then cross-check our methods to find candidate locations for further study. And that's it.
Turn the light up.
Okay, great.
Like I said,
And I've gone long, sorry about that.
Becky kind of mentioned, you know, when we serendipitously ran into each other and looked at their opportunities, that was kind of the idea is, you know, we know that we look at, there's needs for very expensive projects. And again, that they work and they have value in them, but it was, what can we do to find some low cost, simple type solutions that don't always don't always make it in the study consideration, and what are the opportunities lost that impact safety and our ability to make some pretty significant improvements without competing with those very high dollar projects. So
No right of way required. You know, the idea would be that anything we come up with would be, like I say, no right of way, no utility relocation, and no public hearing and no citizen involvement other than what is necessary.
Any questions for Becky? I just love how excited you are by transportation and crash data. It's something I can just really appreciate as someone that loves transportation. But yeah, questions, comments?
This was all really great. So do you have any GIS shapefiles that you can provide when you send the reports out? Because
Yeah.
you know, specifically, I would like to look at overlap in VTrans and eligibility, readiness, all of that goes into it.
Yeah.
So Smart Scale particularly, we're kind of bounded by what we can submit in terms that it has to meet a need, it has to be a VTrans need, it has to be eligible.
Oh, great.
So yeah, a lot of that actually, I don't know if you looked at the pedestrian safety action plan that VDOT developed, but 12th Street, Langhorne, Timberlake, all showed up on this.
Great.
So they're all in PSF as either a tier 1 or tier 2.
Excellent. I had
So
not.
definitely looking at overlaps, trying to hone in on where projects might be eligible and what might be the best fit. So PSI is a good start place. I know they're going to be updating the data. So that'll be coming out at the end of the year for the next round of Smart Scale. I don't really anticipate a whole lot of changes with that. I think it's going to be pretty similar, but it'll be interesting to see where it lines up with the new PSI data.
Yeah, isn't it great to have
data.
two different ways to look at it, overlap.
Yeah, so I think one thing that'll be helpful is where you show the locations and the segments towards the end of this and the report, just labeling them. So I know you have them labeled on the left side. So a little bit where the maps are. I guess it's going to be a little bit further up.
Okay.
Yeah, so like that one. So on the map, just labeling them with the rank that you have on next to the name. That way we're kind of, we can see where they are on the map.
Yeah, what I've done, and again, it's kind of crude, is what the dashboard on the Safer Streets page lets you zoom in and you click on it and it says Timberlake Road, number 9. So then I've done a little snipping tool of that and I'm putting each of those in that case study, so you'll see right where it is. And what's cool is, for example, on Dickerson Mill Road, where my analysis showed the whole thing being, high frequency, it shows this S curve going across a creek as that high sliding window EPDO. So, hey, we don't have to do all of Dickerson Mill Road, but we're sure going to go look at that curvy area. And I just couldn't help it. Like, hey, let me go to Google Maps, see if they have driven it, and I'm like, and one of them, Joplin Mill Road, it's like, okay. When I go to this Google Street View, I'm like, hey, this is a pretty good road. So, it's not necessarily means that you have to do something on Joplin Mill Road, but there was that sliding window where there was a curvy part of, it was a part of Joplin Mill Road where it was in a cut section. And because the rest of Joplin Mill Road as a route looked good. I'm driving it with a little Google Street View, good shoulders, good gravel. And then you got to this cut section where there was an overturn, a rollover and so forth. So again, it doesn't necessarily mean, it's just so nice to go from here to here, and then maybe that's the location for the signs. And then that's the one that the motorist is not inoculated. He says, whoa, I need to slow down, something that alerts the driver. It's great because in the other, it has taken historical crash data. The other category doesn't have risk factors. So that's the human element we need to now input and not hold the other category as sacrosanct as those pet and bike. The model really is looking at risk factors for your pet and bike, really gives you a solid, firm footing on pet and bike. Other is just another layer, just another indicator.
So with the model and the data, is the PDC able to replicate this, or is that something you would do? I'm thinking as we get new PSI data and we're updating it to see trends and how these roads are performing, would it be possible for the PDC to look at that, or is that something that your office would be doing every year as new data comes out?
We can just work on that as a team. It's fantastic to get before and after data. And as a matter of fact, the projects you now have underway or recently completed, that's a blast. Tell me, give me a completion date. I'll give you a great example. In Stafford County, one of the high PSI intersections was Courthouse Road and Stafford Avenue, immediately east of the historic courthouse of Stafford. And so the Fredericksburg District traffic engineer said, hey, why don't you do a road safety assessment for that intersection? Well, we found that the new interchange at Stafford, at Courthouse Road and I-95 completely diverted traffic off of Old Courthouse Road that went through the courthouse historic area to a brand new road. When I plugged in that completion date of December 31st, 1999, the new interchange cured the problem. Now, what we had was an opportunity, though, for a lane reconfiguration. You don't say road diet anymore, a lane reconfiguration. Courthouse Road through Stafford Avenue was 4-lane undivided. They must have thought the world was going to develop, over there by the Potomac River. When we looked at the traffic volumes, it's only 9,000 vehicles a day. So we have 4-lane undivided, we have excess capacity. So they will do a lane reconfiguration when the road needs to be overlaid to 2 through lanes, a center turn lane, and then a buffer area for cyclists. So again, kind of an accidental an analysis, but it's great if you do have projects for me to do a before and after and a crash reduction benefit. We're available to do that anytime. As new data comes up, obviously, I'm all over putting that in there and then sharing those shape files with you, with all of you.
And I know, Ada, our thought is that this, again, this great information, and it kind of intrigued you guys as localities, that we kind of made this a process within the TTC, and we sort of moved through and allowed y'all the opportunity, again, to look at this information now that you've kind of been explained what it is you're looking at, and what will come to you. And then sort of, again, as a group, look at the opportunities on kind of honing in on some of these low costs, and is there an opportunity as these, VDOT and these grant cycles come through to look and, again, kind of looking at a different lens and the opportunity to make some assessments that isn't always competing. Oh, if you go after this small thing, that's inevitably competing with those larger things, and how the NPO puts stuff in. So maybe creating that as a normal feature in what you guys do and y'all's great work here every month.
Would that be something, and we're talking about low hanging fruit, things that can be done simply, signage, things like that? Would it have to be something or some rise to the occasion to be in 6-year plan sorts of things, or are we able to stay below that threshold so that it doesn't take 6 to 10 to 12?
I think that would be the idea, right? Yeah.
I think it's context sensitive based on your location, the severity of the crashes, right away, any utility issues, but a lot of it's going to be low hanging fruit. And speaking of that, I know you guys at the PDC had expressed an interest in looking at where our state of good repair projects are going to be, our repaving jobs. And are you guys still interested in looking at that? And so getting the PDC involved in ride-alongs, we go out and actually look at paving status. We look at the condition of the roadway. We do these ride-alongs. We're actually picking locations to do repavings. And that's kind of what we did with the roadway diet or lane reconfiguration in Amherst. Was we went in and we brought it from a 3-lane to a 2-lane. So we took out the 2-way left turn lane and got into bike lanes. And that was just through our normal paving and restriping operations. So definitely, maybe having this map as a guide to see, hey, this has been identified as a location for possible, shoulder improvement. If there was money available to go out there and make those improvements. The Danville PDC, we actually just on Kentuck Road, we had 2% of our budget set aside for a bike ped on repaving of this road. We're able to get 2-foot shoulders paved as a result of that, just in this latest cycle. So we had the PDC go along and they kind of provided their prioritization of bike ped projects for all of the repaving projects in their area. And they looked at Strava data, they looked at, bike count data and all of that and what was known in their area. So definitely this will be helpful for any kind of repaving, low hanging fruit where you might want to just get like a 2-foot shoulder or signage, things like that out there. So
And some of the maintenance funding.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the idea, is that, to be able to look at all the options on how these things can be attacked, the simple
And the other aspect I want to compliment or maybe get folks thinking about, the installation and where you place that sign is an art that VDOT is the kings of that process. So if we had a bundle with locations for Chevron signs and so forth, rather than have a bid contractor install, if there's a way for us to include compensation for VDOT, because they can't do it on top of everything else they're doing, either to pay VDOT to manage the construction of that, so that VDOT can be there to say that sign goes here. That's the best between here and here. It might meet MUTCD. A contractor won't really care about the art of, boy, you know what? If you bring it back a little bit, the motorist is going to see it that much sooner. So as we're thinking, VDOT is such an integral partner. It's their system, it's your system, but also you guys have that eye, and your folks in the field have the eye to know really the best place for that, as opposed to trying to prescribe a bid. to a contractor. And that's so frightening to people, sitting here. Oh my gosh, am I going to have to bid a sign job on Job Mill Road? So that was the sort of the vision of the bundle, but not to overwhelm, the capacity. Try to somehow infuse it so that we can take advantage of the eye, the historical knowledge of VDOT, for this to be the soul. These signs are your soul out there. These secondary roads are the heart and soul.
Anybody else? Anything else? Well, thank you, Becky. I mean, this is just wonderful information. And I know that we'll, as we go forward, I'm sure these localities are really excited and intrigued by your data.
Great. And it's, I enjoy coming down here. I know I took more time than I anticipated, but I'll send these case studies to you, the reports, the shape files. And we'll just, if we could keep an ongoing relationship and communication, that would be great. Maybe what I can do might be a little less time consuming. When I feed you this next case study and reports, I can join you at your next meeting. I think you're not having one in November, but one in December, just to maybe explain what the heck I sent you. Sometimes you get stuff and you're like, what is this? Great. It's a 75-page slides and I have no idea what this is. So that would be a great way for us to keep the communication going.
Yes, great. All right. Well, we'll see you all back in December.
Great.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you again. I do,
I'll
yes.
send you those shape files.
That'd be great.
Yeah, they're here.
Yeah.
They're just on the virtual.